We're late again, but here we are, the Roto Hackers, your unauthorized source of fantasy football information and news and jolly good times. Jared Putnam, it's Jared, and me, Judah Buddha, it's Judah Buddha. I don't know, I got nothing. So here we are talking about fantasy football. It's week 8, man. We are into we're halfway.
It's week
9.
Yeah,
I'm an idiot. I even put week 8.
You're behind. You're a week behind. Yeah, that's how fast the season's going. Is that you are a week behind?
I'm always a week behind. I need to amend that.
A day late, and 2 fantasy points short.
Oh man, so I would like to talk a little bit about the news. There's a lot of news. I wouldn't say a lot. There's a little bit of news out there, but also I want to can we review Thursday night's game? Kind of give your takes. What did we learn from Thursday night's game? So let's start with that. What'd you take out of Thursday night's game?
Yeah, I think there were a few interesting takeaways. I have several interesting takeaways, which I would not have expected from a 49ers Cardinals game. Man, what a difference a new team can make for Kenyon Drake. Yeah, he looked good against San Francisco's defense. But it's always looked like he could be pretty good, and just for some reason Miami never wanted to use him. It's been really weird.
Almost like they had something personal against him.
Yeah, right. I mean, when it gets to the point where they're like playing Kalen Ballage over you, what's the deal? So that was one thing. And then on the other side, like Jimmy G and Emmanuel Sanders, like they've made that connection really quick.
Man,
Sanders,
it's almost like he's been on the team forever now.
Yeah. Well, and that's what the announcers kept saying is, it's like they are connecting. Like Jimmy G's throwing that ball for it to get there, like right as he's coming out of his break, in ways that would be impressive for a guy who had been on the team for years, let alone for a guy who's been on the team for like 2 weeks. So that was huge, and like. I didn't really think a whole lot of Emmanuel Sanders going over there because they don't, hadn't really been throwing the ball that much at least to the wide receivers. They've, they don't throw it that much, period. But, when they do, Kittle gets it a lot, or it's a dump off to a running back. But like, Emmanuel Sanders might actually now return, I think like you were thinking like, really good fantasy value. And then, there were just a lot of, other little subplots beyond that. Like the 49ers defense looked mortal for a change. Kyler Murray looked, pretty good once they kind of got going a little bit more against that, made it a game at the end. Jimmy G might have tried to steal Erin Andrews away from her husband. Just you missed that?
No, I didn't see that. What was that?
So you can find it on the internet, but like she was doing a post game interview with him, and so like they wrap up the interview as I forget what questions she asked him, something about his takeaway, and he just gives this like flirty smile, and he's like, "Just win, baby." And then he walks off a little bit, and she's like even cracking up, because I mean, like you could say like that's something that he could say to a male reporter too. Like just win, baby is just a phrase, it's not like, but just the way he said it. And then like he walked off, and she was like, you could tell she was like laughing and kind of like almost blushing. And then like he walked off a little ways and then like turns back and smiles. And it was just really it was really funny. So.
Oh, Jimmy Polo back at it again with his beautiful looks.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on in that game and after that game.
Well, so I do think that Manny Sanders was, to me, it went back to what you said. It really showed out at what you said, because I was like, they have a ton of wide receivers there, and you said, yeah, but you said something to the effect of, well, they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And I was like,
drop. Did you see that drop by I think it was Deebo Samuel?
And the running back
Coleman had a bad drop too.
Coleman too. But yeah, that Debo it was stark contrast between what a good wide receiver looks like and what a bad wide receiver looks like. I guess I guess I blame Jimmy Polo. I guess I blame this. I don't know. I just thought they were decent and they were just, but no, I think you're right.
They're terrible.
They're terrible.
Yeah.
And it also made me look at the Cardinals wide receivers and think, man, they really they don't have much going on as far as to me, they're similar teams. Of course, not now that they have Emmanuel Sanders. Here, the other thing, what do we do about Johnson now? Is Johnson going to come back, and take away all the snaps, or is Drake going to take 30 to 40 snaps away from Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's any. I would think with like David Johnson hasn't really done anything to lose his starting job. I mean, he got injured. But in terms of when he was in there, it wasn't like a Cam Newton situation where he was playing really, poorly or something oh, do we even want to go back to this guy? I think, but I just imagine it being him getting probably 50% of the carries and then Edmonds and Drake getting some sort of split of that other 50%. I only have David Johnson in one of my 17 leagues, and I don't like that outlook going forward because I have no idea, what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, it's hard for me because David Johnson and Drake have always been guys that. So we'll talk a little bit more about David Johnson later. And I want to talk about picking up people at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. But so I've always had kind of a man crush on both of them, and always hoped that Drake would break out, and he breaks out at the expense of my other favorite guy. I'm conflicted. I don't have a lot of Johnson. I worried about the offensive line and stuff like that, but in the leagues that I need him badly. Leagues, and I didn't pick up Drake. I wish I had. I wish I had. I wish I just trusted my evaluation of his skill and just said, boom, baby. But but it could be going forward. A lot of people are saying going forward, that's the best you'll get from Drake.
Yeah, I mean, if Johnson's back next week, I think we'll learn a lot next week if he's back. But really, what can you do about it at this point? If you own him, you're not going to get trade value for him because everybody's going to be afraid to, take that on. And so, I really think, with him, you hope to kind of have both, but then you got Chase Edmonds there too, who was really kind of better, in some ways than Johnson when he was playing. You don't want to have to roster 3 running backs from one team, so it's just a mess. I think Chase Edmonds goes by the wayside. I don't see him he did better, but he doesn't have the skill that Drake and Johnson have. He'll be an afterthought. I think my vision. I don't know. Any more takeaways? What do we think about Isabel? Is he rosterable? Because that was a beautiful catch and run, and he has had a lot of buzz about him in the past. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of hard to tell at this point. This was. I'm just looking back through his stat line. Okay, so never mind. I retract everything that I just said about it being kind of hard to tell. He had 0 targets through week 6. And then he had 2 in week 7 for 8 yards. And then he's had 1 catch for 88 yards and a touchdown. So 3 catches on the season. We just happened to see that one big one. I couldn't really remember. I had no idea. I'd like you, I'd been hearing that name, but
Mhm.
I couldn't remember like what he had, he hadn't really been like fantasy relevant, but I looked at it just then thinking like, okay, is he somebody who's kind of flown under the radar and he's going to get more targets? But I mean, 3 targets all season, unless like Christian Kirk goes down permanently or Fitzgerald goes down permanently or something.
They need to put Fitzgerald down, honestly, man.
Yeah, he's there that he can beat certain types of defenses, like with his smarts. But like the later the season goes, like the less, the more trouble he has because he's old and he just, whatever little burst he's got at the beginning of the season is like gone by like week 6. So yeah, they definitely need some like weapons to complement Kyler Murray. And I don't know if they've really got the big play guy on the roster right now, or if they need to draft him next year.
It's interesting. We have to. I think I'm putting a little star on him and keeping an eye on him because he has the pedigree. He was touted as an excellent wide receiver coming into the league. Yeah. So Ray Gibson and Josh Twenter are in the chat, and we'll get to you soon. Just want to go over really quickly. There's some important news I want to get your take on. I was hoping to get AJ's too, but he can't be with us today. Got some stuff going on. So the big news for me is we got to talk about Josh Gordon. So we knew that he was going to be dropped. We talked about him being dropped and going with another team. I just feel like that escalated quickly. Going to the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Of all places, I did not foresee that. Your take?
Well, it's funny because I think back to when Antonio Brown was getting released by the Raiders, like the 2, I guess, biggest suitors for him were Seattle and New England.
That's what you said. Yeah.
And so then we have New England releasing Gordon, who was kind of, I guess, last year's or the year before's Antonio Brown.
The bad boy of the NFL type thing.
Yeah. And so I guess Russell Wilson apparently has a decent personal relationship with him, and that was part of what kind of spurred this, because the Seahawks were like 28th on the waiver list, and they were the only team to put in a claim for him. So that tells you what everyone else thinks of that situation. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so I picked him up in 2 leagues and stuck him on IR because he's still like he's out for this week, so you can put him in an IR spot. I don't have a ton of hope for it. I mean, I had enough to, pick him up in a couple of leagues where I, am kind of thin at wide receiver. But it's just one of those things. It's kind of like, if you're not making it in New England, if you're not really showing flashes or something, like where else is that going to work? Seattle, though, is like one place, I mean, that I could see, they don't have the deepest group of receivers. Metcalf has been kind of the number 2, and he's just a rookie. I could see Gordon, being like a serviceable, potentially like low end wide receiver 2 or, wide receiver 3. Because of the way, like if he's got a personal connection with Wilson, like I don't know if they've like ever gone and thrown the ball together or what, but maybe it could be a situation where, because of the way Russell Wilson plays, like running around, plays break down and Gordon's able to better get open, and they've got some sort of personal connection could work, because with traditional plays, again, like if you can't make it work in New England with Tom Brady, where's it going to work? But I would give that little bit of hope for that reason, that it, Seattle and the way Russell Wilson plays is a completely different style,
Yeah, it's interesting because that's the thing that, like, I typically don't go after anybody who comes out of it. It almost seems like people that the Pats reject have a curse on them or something, It's like when you come out of being a Pats, I've never seen anybody really flourish coming out, having been, a lot of people that flourish as a Pat. And I think what it comes down to me, a Patriot, when they go into a different system, they typically don't do as well. Like, and everybody expects them to do as well as they did as a Patriot. But like you said, this almost seems to fit Gordon a little bit more. This kind of offense, this kind of like big play offense.
Yeah.
But the question is, what about DK Metcalf? Because it almost seems like DK Metcalf is the big body, big play guy in the red zone, in the end zone, that feels like Josh Gordon will do that better.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine this affecting Tyler Lockett tremendously because he's just a different type of guy. But, Metcalf, his numbers looked pretty good from last week if you just look at the point total because he caught 2 touchdowns. But I think it was also like 2 of the only passes that he caught and for like 13 yards. And he's just so raw, I mean, he's tremendously physically talented, but he's very raw. And so, we'll see what Josh Gordon brings, but you got to think that he could probably, is probably going to leapfrog DK as that number 2 wide receiver, I would think, but we'll see.
Yeah, I guess I'm somebody who has a lot of shares of DK, and so I'm a little nervous. I talked to somebody that thought that they're going to play different roles in the sense that DK will be, I forget what they said. Where Gordon will probably take the place of like David Moore and Jaron Brown as sort of that like big play outside, stretch the field, whereas DK will continue to play, actually will fit in better now that what's his name is gone, in that tight end role.
Oh, Will Dissly.
Yeah. So he'll play that big kind of lumbering tight end role in the end zone. I don't know. I guess there is a story where they all fit in fine. This kind of makes me excited about the quarterback.
Russell Wilson.
The names just go out of my head as soon as I want them. So Russell Wilson now has another weapon. I don't know. It seems like they're going to be throwing more.
Yeah. I've got a game that I need to win this week, and the guy's playing Russell Wilson, and they're playing Tampa at home. I'm just like, oh my gosh, he's going to put up 45 points and beat me. So.
Oh, he's got Russell Wilson?
He's got Russell Wilson, yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, that's probably going to come up in the start sims because there's a lot of guys from that game. It's like, I heard somebody say that they painted an interesting picture of that game where it's not a huge shootout, where the Seahawks are happy to get up by 10. Say they have like their defense runs one in. They get up by 10 and they just slow down the clock. They're just happy to just kill the game once they get up.
Man, that would be fine. I don't see how that's going to happen. Tampa's run defense is pretty good, so I don't think Seattle's going to be able to run the ball very well. And Tampa, Jameis is going to make mistakes, but you've got Evans and Godwin out there, and he's going to connect with them too. And so it's hard for me to imagine, like, how is this not going to be, unless it's like pouring rain or something. How is this not going to be just a shootout?
Interesting. That's true. Well, let's get. Unless there's any other news that really stood out to you, I'm just looking. Chris Herndon probably not going to play.
So James Conner is doubtful.
I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, I don't either. Like from the very beginning, it didn't sound like this was just going to be a, oh yeah, I'll be limited, but play sort of thing. Like
right. You brought up you pointed out that he said, "Hey guys, I don't think this is the end of my career."
It's like, I don't think this is going to be season ending. Like, okay,
you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, right. When that's what you're leading with, then you can't come back and be like, but I'll be limited. Maybe I'll play this week. No. You just like, you were already thinking long term.
Yeah, we weren't even thinking that, Connor.
Right. No one was saying that, and you brought it up. So I would be surprised if he's back next week. Just from based on that. So I would say, this is probably,
fire up all your Jalen's or what?
For the price? Well, okay. So if in DFS, for the price for sure, and then in your lineup, hopefully you've got Jalen Samuels if you have Connor. But a lot of people, are probably not. It's funny because I was able to actually pick up Samuels in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
But usually not the ones where I also had Connor, oddly enough. So, so I do have him in a couple, but I'm going to be playing him in ones where I just play him as a flex or something like that. And the Colts run defense is not, terribly intimidating. They're not soft really, but you can score on them. Pittsburgh's at home.
Yeah.
The Colts are going to be without T.Y. Hilton. Actually, that's other news. Is T.Y.'s out for probably 3 weeks. They call it like a 3-week injury.
Yeah, I was surprised it was so long. It felt out of the blue. 3 weeks. And somebody was saying it was a doctor was talking about it. He was just saying that it's probably like a grade 2, where like if it was 3, they'd have to do surgery, but they're saying 3 weeks, so it's got to be like, it's not grade 1,
right. Yeah,
he said it was similar to what he was comparing it to what Luck had in his calf. So I was like, wow. Oh, don't say that, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So T.Y. is going to be out. I think it's the Steelers will, I think, be able to play a solid defensive game. I like Jalen Samuels this week. So I just wish I had him on a lot of teams where I had Connor. And it was funny because there was a guy I was trying to trade Samuels to after I picked him up because I don't have Connor. I was trying to trade him to the guy who had Connor, and he's like, just basically making fun of me, like, oh, Connor's going to play this week, So like,
wow, interesting. I got star sit time. So
star sit time. So that was intentional, or
no.
You should have just gone with that.
I mean, yes, it's. Is he gonna star or is he gonna sit? So we have some questions already in the chat. Ray Gibson says, play PPR flex John Brown or Robbie Anderson. I think it's a really good question because a lot of us savvy fantasy players have been, stashing both these guys, and it seems kind of like a smash place for both of them this week.
Yeah. I think you've got 2 pretty good options there, but I think for me, I would go Robbie Anderson. He's shown a little bit more tendency to have those big games. He came away with 3 late in the season last year in like a span of 4 games, and then this year he's really only had I think really kind of the one game, but you got to keep in mind that Darnold has missed most of the year.
Yeah.
And John Brown has been solid, but like really since week 1, he hasn't done a tremendous amount. He had week one, it looked like he could be a waiver wire steal, 123 yards, a touchdown on 7 receptions from 10 targets. Since then it's been like 10, 7, 9, 10, had a good game against the Dolphins, 16.8 in week 7. And then kind of disappointed a little bit last week with under 8 points against Philly, but his big game was against the Dolphins. Robbie Anderson gets the Dolphins this week. So I think Robbie's got a little bit of a matchup advantage there, in terms of the game of the opponent. And I think Sam Darnold is just a little bit more when he's not seeing ghosts of New England Patriots players, like he's a little bit more accurate of a quarterback. Whereas I think that kind of holds Anderson back a little bit, or hold John Brown back a little bit, is because even though Josh Allen has a huge arm, he's not always the most accurate quarterback. He can pull it down and run it more than than Sam Darnold is going to do. So I like Robbie Anderson over Brown.
I actually lean more at Brown, but I feel like it's a flip of a coin. They may have this exact same stat line at the end of the day. The thing that worries me is we can talk all we want about Sam Darnold being a better player and he's got a better matchup. But I don't know that that's true. He may just be a terrible quarterback. He just may be. I have never seen him consistently ball out. And on top of that, something weird going on with Miami Dolphins, in the sense that I feel like they're starting to come on a little bit more, and maybe they're tired of being the butt end of a joke.
Yeah.
But it feels like they're trying to play a little bit more on defense and then just sort of give away the game at the end, which, garbage time is a wonderful thing. I don't know though. There's too many questions. I want to see them do it. Like, I think both of these are decent flex play.
Mm-hmm.
The difference for me is that John Brown, skill-wise, is better. I just think he's better. Robbie Anderson's fast, and he will get those long, and he'll pay off with 2 catches, right?
Yeah.
John Brown, I think if you're looking for a little bit more a safe option, because John Brown, Robbie Anderson could get 0 too. I mean,
true. He's boom or bust. Yeah.
And so could John Brown, but I feel like he's getting a little bit more targeted, and he's a little bit more of the main red zone option. I think he's had a rough time lately because I don't think they've had the greatest matchups. I think the string of good matchups starts this week.
Yeah.
As they have a great matchup, against Washington, and then they go to, I think they get the Dolphins again. So this may be the start of a nice little run for John Brown, but I mostly agree with you, and this could just be a flip of the coin.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The thing, I guess the one thing that scares me about Darnold is the split between his home and road stats, and they are on the road with Miami. But so his split from the home road stats last year was 12 touchdowns, 7 INTs at home, 5 touchdowns, 8 INTs on the road, and about 400 fewer yards. And that was playing an extra game on the road. So that worries me a little bit. I mean, and you could say, because I mean, you do have guys like Big Ben, who's had, some huge splits between home and road before.
Breeze too.
And, so that's not always just like, oh, well, that was a fluky season or he was a rookie or whatever. Like, guys can just make a huge difference if they can't, if the crowd noise is affecting them or stuff like that. So, and Darnold, we know, I mean, in a way, like, kudos to him for being honest and admitting what was going on, but doing it while he was mic'd up for Monday Night Football was not really the most, productive thing for him. But, I don't know, but but at the same time, like, I feel like, even if that game's not going particularly well, it might actually be in their favor, because if Miami plays them more competitively and stays in it, then they may, or even somehow had a lead, like, it might be, better for him, throw into Robbie Anderson versus like just letting Le'Veon Bell run all over him.
And just go back to last week. Think about Juju, like he had, me and you were watching that game just hoping for Juju to get something, and then he blows up at the end of the game.
He and Deontay Johnson both caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like really hard for me to not play a star receiver against the Dolphins.
Yeah. So we got Josh Twenter with Flex Chark or Mac non PPR. That's interesting. Okay.
That does make it a little different.
Although, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you take this one first.
I don't know. I'm worried. So going back to the last question too is like I worry about these places where you just feel like Dolphins are free space. Like it just seems like at some point in the NFL it flips. And there's just, I feel like too much of the money. Let's talk about it in terms of like betting. Too much of the money is on Jacksonville this week. It feels like this may be a spot. It just seems like Houston's dead. They're done for. They get so many injuries to their defense. Play all your wide receivers against Houston. I always worry about that because in the past, you just, okay, yeah. Well, the analysts, yes, whatever you say, and then you go and do it, and it's like, what? And you realize it's the NFL that it's hard to predict things, So be careful about, I'm worried about my confidence in Houston being such a terrible defense. They still are going to get a pass rush. They don't have big man. Can't remember his name.
JJ
Watt. They don't have Watt anymore, but they still have a decent pass rush even without him. He's struggled. I think he's gotten some good run in, but it hasn't been. It's the whole scheme, their defensive scheme, that's been pretty good on the rush. Yeah. What do you? So Chark versus Mac. So I guess that I would lean more towards Mac. I think he's going to have a smash game with no they're gonna have to lean on someone, and I think they're gonna have to lean on Mac to win.
Opposite for me. Easy for me, easy to go with Chark. Houston's given up the second most points to wide receivers. Pittsburgh's given up, I think, the seventh least to running backs. I don't think TY being out helps him. I think like on the road, just having fewer options and being able to move the ball less, I think is going to create more of a problem for, Pittsburgh just being able to try to stuff the run and try to force Jacoby Brissett to beat him. And I think really like being non-PPR, in this case, it doesn't necessarily help Chark versus Mac because Mac doesn't really catch a lot of balls, and you're not pitting Mac or putting Chark up against another wide receiver. But Chark just doesn't, like, he's more of the big play guy. He's not a guy who's going to catch 10 balls or something like that. I mean, he caught 8 in week 5 against Carolina, and he's had so he basically out of 8 games he's had 3 of those where he's had more than 4 catches. He had week 2, week 5, and last week against the Jets, he had his most targets of the year. He had 12 and caught 6 for 79 and a touchdown. But most of the time he's doing his damage off of, fewer targets and just kind of bigger plays. So, I mean, and I get what you're saying with, eventually any NFL defense, you're going to get to some parity and, them just having a good game and stuff like that. But, I think just with fantasy football, you have to play what gives you the best chances. And if you've got a guy who's, been a number 1, receiver for a team, and he's going up against the number 2, the second worst pass defense, I think you got to go with that over the situation with Mac against the Steelers defense.
I agree for the most part. I'm trying to look now. I feel like there was something wrong with Chark. Like he
had middle of the week. He popped up on the injury report with, let's see if I can find it easily. No, he popped up like midweek, but it didn't seem to be, the tag has been removed off of him. So I don't think it was anything serious.
And do we know anything about Dede?
Yeah, I think we're still waiting on Dede. He's listed as questionable. He did, I think, practice, in limited sessions. I mean, really, it would be. I wish he would be out, because then I would grab Chris Conley and just play the hell out of Chris Conley in every league that I could put him in, because it funnels down your number of options for that passing game. If Dede plays, then you've got Chark, Conley, and Dede. Two of those three could have big games. I don't think all three are going to. And you don't know which two it's going to be. You don't know if Dede is going to finish the game. He went out, early last week. That's why, Conley had done well. So, I mean, to me, if he plays, it makes it messier, and it would be hard for me to justify playing anybody other than Chark. But if he doesn't, like, you just fire up Chark and Conley all day.
Well, and see, that's the other thing is the other day, remember when I said Chark week, and I got AJ so mad at me because he fired up the Chark on that week.
Yeah.
And it ended up being Dede took most of the receptions and started to get targeted more. He's been, except for being injured, if he had not been injured, it looked like he was starting to ascend as the primary target. So I don't know. It's a little messy for me, whereas I know Mac is going, like, he's going to get the ball. He's going to get the rock, man. And they're not going to win unless he does.
Yeah, but with him, it's very up and down with him, though. So he's kind of even as the undisputed primary option for the Colts, he's very boom or bust. So his point line has gone, and I'm just going to round these off rather than give fractional points. 25, 7, 15, 3, 16, 7, 15, and then now we've got this work at Pittsburgh. So if that follows, then this is his week for another down week. And the thing with him is just, okay, so he did well. Here are the defenses that he's done well against. Chargers, terrible run defense. We saw what I said, play David Montgomery last week, even though David Montgomery had gotten 2 carries the week before, because they're that bad. Week 3, Atlanta is that bad. The Chiefs, their run defense is that bad. So it's only been the worst of the worst that he's really been going off against. And, not only, I mean, Pittsburgh's not even just an average defense, they're a pretty good run defense. So with not having TY being on the road, I can easily see this being like a,
and this is their second road game, right? Like 2 weeks on the road
for the Colts.
Yeah.
No, they were at home. They were at home for the last 2 for Houston and Denver.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Well, all right. Well, I mean, according to that, the Colts are just going to get smashed. You're saying touchdown or more.
I don't think they'll get smashed because of the way they play. They play very conservatively. And so they basically, in some ways, like most of the time, if you play not to lose, that doesn't work out for you. The Colts have somehow kind of mastered this play not to lose sort of thing, and they squeak out these, wins. So very Seahawks-esque in the way it's very Seahawks-esque. Every single one of their games has been decided by a touchdown or less. They're 5-2. 2 of those games have been 7 points, and all the others have been fewer than 7 points.
Wow.
So they really manage Jacoby, and that's why I'm always so scared of playing Jacoby too. Although he has proven that, like, against terrible pass defenses, he can ball out. But they're always like, they would rather him not make the throw or throw the ball away than to put it in danger. And so that's why, like, a lot of these games, they, it's just really tight, and they just kind of hang around, and they're not scoring points, but they're just trying to avoid giving up points. And then it comes down to the end, and they make a field goal, or they stop the other team from, getting a touchdown or whatever. So, I don't like, if you need a tight end streamer, like, I could play Ebron this week. But other than that, like, there are just no Colts this week that I would want to fire up for that game.
Okay. Well, we don't have any more feel free if you're watching, feel free to drop a question. If you have a start sit, or if you just have a philosophical question about what you should do this week or going forward the rest of the season, I've got a question. I've got a big decision I have to make in the league where if I lose, I'm out. And it's just a guillotine league. So I have to play one of these guys. Do I play Jamal Williams or Mark Walton?
That is a tough one. Because Walton's going to get, he's the undisputed guy. He's going to get the volume, but he runs for the Dolphins. And Williams has been great. Even as the number 2 guy, it's been like, it's been a lot like, really, maybe it's been better than last year with Gordon and Eckler, because Williams has had, a couple of really big games. But the Chargers are just so bad against the run.
But to me, that means it's just going to be more Aaron Jones. To me, the reason Jamal Williams has gotten so much play is they've played some tough defenses against the run, and he's much more of a run block / pass catcher in their offense, in their scheme.
Yeah. It is kind of weird. His usage is a little bit weird because they don't always give him a ton of carries, So like the last 2 weeks, he had 10 total carries, 3 and 7, and yet he's had 11 plus points and 17 plus points because he's getting touchdowns and he's getting the catches and stuff. But, week 6 against Detroit, he got 14 carries, 104 yards. Week, 3 against Denver, he got a dozen carries. So the number of carries they give him is kind of up or down. But man,
remember that one against the Lions is because he fumbled. Aaron Jones fumbled, and he was sort of like benched. He was sort of punished that. You remember? And he barely got any touches that game,
right?
Even though he was healthy,
right.
So I mean, and I guess that could happen again. But I feel like Mark Walton, I kind of want to hold my nose and just put him in. Because this is the kind of league where I need safe over upside, I just need to, if I make over 100 points, I'm in, I'm good.
Okay.
So I wonder, but then again, but it's hard because I've always been a Jamal proponent.
Yeah.
And I'm a Packers fan. I hate the Dolphins. They stink this year. So it's like, I don't know.
That's a tough one. That's one I would probably have to think about more. And I'm not sure that any amount of like mulling that over in your brain is gonna provide clarity, because it is just sort of like, it's like, choosing your character in RPG or something. It's like they've both got these strengths, but they've got a weakness too there. So do you trust the better offense and the talent versus the volume and the terrible, so I don't know. I like, off the top of my head, I would just be more inclined to go with Williams. But I do see, the argument for Walton there too.
So still no clarity.
Yeah.
There's a couple other guys on the waiver wire that could play, but while I'm looking at that, did you have any start sits that you were going to bring up, some interesting situations that folks might have before them?
I'm going to try to, I guess it'll take me a minute to really look for maybe some deeper ones this week, but I guess just kind of as some of the more obvious ones that I'll go with, Robbie Anderson, going back to the question before, he's a guy I'm going to play. Cortland Sutton, somebody who
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Cortland Sutton. Maybe even you want to frame it Cortland Sutton versus Anderson.
Maybe so. I mean, and that's an easy Anderson for me because Cortland Sutton is somebody that I've had in several leagues, and I really liked him. And now Flacco's gone. They're on their third string quarterback, so they're on their third string quarterback against the Browns secondary, which is pretty good when it's healthy.
Yeah.
And I not only do I not like Sutton this week, like rest of season, it's pretty worrisome.
Well, now, what's his name? The rookie comes back next week, I think.
Well, Drew Lock.
Drew Lock will be back. He's injured right now, and I think they're expecting him to come back, if not next week, the next. I don't think they're expecting Obscurity Man, whatever his name is, to take. No, Flacco's gone for the season.
Yeah.
Who's the third string guy?
I can't remember now. I don't. His name is one I don't know, so I can't help you out on that one. But I don't know. It just worries. I mean, Drew Lock hasn't really played this year. I think he got injured in training camp, at least the preseason, if not, even training camp. And so what are they going to get out of him? I have no idea.
Could he be worse than Joe Flacco though?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because Flacco was at least able to get Sutton the ball. Like Flacco, I mean, in terms of fantasy points, like he was able to get Sutton the ball, and Sutton was very consistent. So that floor could just fall out, from and under Cortland Sutton.
Interesting. It hurts my heart because Sutton was a big pickup for me in a lot of leagues. Yeah. And I felt great about him. Felt like he was doing better and better each week. And now I don't know, man. It feels over for him in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But are we putting too much? It could be, this is the NFL. Are we putting too much credence in the fact that this new guy is no good? We don't know. He could be serviceable. And in fact, Joe Flacco was no Superman.
Right. Yeah. It's not like he's replacing, Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or something. But I think the most worrisome part for me is the fact that it's a rookie, and you just have no idea like how low that floor might be. I mean, even if it's a journeyman guy that you can kind of look back and see like, oh, well, he's going to throw pick sixes, but he's at least going to also be able to get the ball to the receiver, sometimes.
Right. But they were they're confident enough. I guess was it an injury that took Joe Flacco out, or do you think they made this they made it an injury thing?
It sounds like it was a legitimate injury thing. I wondered at first, but it sounds like it was. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So sit your Suttons. Rag Evolution. Should I trade Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida for Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones?
I want to know who is giving you that deal. If you can do it, absolutely. I can't imagine that your league will let that go through, even if the guy accepted it.
I mean, okay, let's just get in the head of the person who has Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I guess I could see Alvin Kamara is banged up. Aaron Jones is boom or bust. I really want I don't know.
No,
that's Coleman is boom or bust, and Matt Breida is banged up. Like what? They're like the poor man's versions of Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones.
I want to know if this trade was offered to this guy, or if he's thinking about proposing it. If it was offered to you, accept it immediately. Yes. But understand that if there's some sort of veto system in your league, they're probably going to veto it, unless you're in last place and it's a contender trading these guys to you, in which they'll be like, oh yeah, sure, that works. But if you're thinking of offering this, if it's not something that's been offered to you, if you're thinking of offering it, I would not do that, because if you want to trade with the guy, it's probably just going to immediately piss him off. And so
if you were the guy, would you take Coleman and Breida for Aaron Jones or Alvin Kamara?
right, like I would not take both of them. I would not take both of them for one of those guys.
Nah.
Like you would have to give me, like if you wanted Aaron Jones or Alvin Kamara, like you would have to give me Coleman and Breida. And the only reason I would really want Breida is as a handcuff. Even though they split carries and Breida can have a better game, Coleman is the red zone back and typically going to be the guy. You would have to also give me another good running back or a wide receiver. It would I would have to have a depth problem. And that's the only way I would trade one of those guys. But if someone's offered that to you, by all means, accept that immediately. Yeah.
I'm already, and I have never been a Tevin Coleman supporter. I just feel like he's a normal dude who's he's gotten some good opportunities. I don't think he's that great. I actually think Matt Breida is a better player. He just can't stay healthy. I mean, there's so many memes about Matt Breida. Just like, I know what's going to happen to him. He's going to be questionable. He's going to play, and then in this, second quarter, he's going to limp off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I've seen this story before. I don't know what this is. Alvin Kamara is going to be healthy next week when he plays. He's on bye right now. Maybe that's what's got. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Did you have it? So I've got this big question here. Start or sit one? Okay, so you got to start one of these. Okay, and you're as your second running back, Mark Walton, Carlos Hyde, Adrian Peterson.
So I don't really love Peterson at Buffalo. Running backs have not fared terribly well against Jacksonville. I would be, I guess I would be inclined to go with Walton. But man, that's a rough one.
Yeah. So who is Peterson playing? They're playing the Bills.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. And Hyde, they're playing. Well, I guess we've talked ad nauseum about these two games.
Yeah.
So Hyde is playing a decent run defense.
I mean, the thing with Peterson. So here is the argument for Peterson though. Like lately, Washington has managed to be able to let him run the ball pretty well against some solid run defenses. So San Francisco, he had 81 yards on 20 carries, although, we saw what Kenyon Drake did to him. So maybe San Francisco's run defense is just not quite as intimidating as we thought. It's maybe more of the pass defense and creating turnovers and stuff. But then last week at Minnesota, he also ran for 76 yards on 14 carries, and he had some catches and stuff too, which put him into double digits. But Buffalo's a solid defense. I mean, it really all is going to kind of, to me, come down to whether or not he could get you a touchdown. I think he or Walton are probably the play there.
So Hyde's playing against the
Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's playing against Jacksonville. They're Saxonville. This is gonna be a London game too. It'll be like 9:00 in the morning. So you got to make this decision, I got to make this decision before 9 on Sunday if I'm even considering Hyde.
Yeah,
I think you gotta go with Walton, man. Walton is a decent player. He has decent speed. His vision lacks, but I think he has a little wiggle, some moves, and pretty decent speed. I think Walton could have a big game here.
Yeah, I mean, and the Jets just haven't been good against the run. I think that's probably the play.
Okay. So take Walton. If you threw in Jalen Samuels, would you Jalen Samuels over all these guys?
Oh yeah, immediately.
Jamal Williams over all these, or over Hyde and Peterson for sure.
Well, that's back to the Walton or Williams thing that we had before. So, yeah, I would do Williams over those other guys, especially. Okay. Yeah, it does come down then to kind of Williams or Walton, but yeah, Samuels for me, because Pittsburgh, they're at home, they're going to run the ball. The Colts aren't, they're not soft, but they're not intimidating. Yeah, Samuel's easily for me.
Okay. We already talked. So RAG Evolution is, hey, by the way, dude, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you can. We already talked about Josh Gordon, but we didn't actually say, would you go through all your leagues? And you said you did pick him up in a few leagues.
I picked him up in 2 out of 17. So it had to be like very specific circumstances, And
what are those circumstances for you? Like, you desperately need a wide receiver?
No. So let's see. Let me double check real quick. So one of them where I picked him up, I'll give you the circumstances, is I'm 7-1 in that league. So I'm in a comfortable spot. My receivers are Galladay, Sterling Shepard, Cortland Sutton, and Deshaun Jackson. So I'm going to make the playoffs, and I feel good about Kenny Galladay in the first round of the playoffs because they've got Tampa. So Galladay is going to be my wide receiver 1, and I need a wide receiver 2 in that matchup. And so Cortland Sutton, again, we talked about him and how the quarterback situation is kind of scaring me there in Denver. Sterling Shepard I like, and they play the Dolphins. They get the Dolphins and the Redskins in the playoffs, but he's had 2 concussions. He's just now going to be coming back from one of those. If he gets another one, he's probably done for the season.
Maybe done for his career.
Yeah, maybe. And Deshaun Jackson, he's been hurt. Again, he looks like he's maybe going to come back this week. He could get re-injured. So I don't need immediate help. I'm looking for long-term help, but I do have a need at wide receiver. And so that was why I picked up Gordon there. And then the other place I got him, let's see if this will come up. So yeah. Okay. So the other place I got him, I've actually got pretty good depth there. So I've got DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Chark, Allen Robinson, Sterling Shepard. But Gordon, I had a available roster spot. And I think really the thing with this league is that I could put someone on IR. And so I just plucked him off the waiver wire, had a player I could drop, put him on IR, and then picked up someone else. So that was kind of the situation. So I think it's got to be like specific circumstances. If you're in a deeper league, you may not have to like really run through the list of, do I need him or do I not? But in a 10-team league, if you've got a pretty good team, I think it's got to be like specific circumstances when you pick him up.
And if you just have one league, if you just got a league, home league, you're just asking about, I'd say pick him up. It can't hurt. Put him on IR. You're going to pick up somebody else. Yeah, I mean, you probably got a bench spot if you're asking this. I would say, yeah, pick him up. If you have to ask, pick him up. See what happens, because you'll know by next week. I don't think he plays at all this week. They have to get him on the roster by today at 4 to play him. So there's a possibility he plays. I don't know. I mean,
I think they said he's not playing this week.
Okay. So he's not playing this week. We'll know next week if he isn't out there on the field, which is a big possibility. Then he's probably not going to do much. He's going to come in and gadget plays, spot plays, and they're just going to roll with what they have. But if he just comes in and takes over the David Moore, Jaron Brown role, I think he could be a valuable pickup. So just pick him up, see what happens. Do you have see what happens? Oh, someone just came. Oh,
That was you.
that was me. Clicked on oh, that was us. Okay, so
You're like, who is this handsome devil
Who?
talking about fantasy football?
it sounds like he's smart. All right. Did you have any more start sits questions that you want to review?
Just kind of looking through my players here, just to kind of touch on, I guess, some of these guys. Yeah, I mean, Matt Stafford, I like him again this week. Oakland's got a terrible pass defense. I picked up Stafford last week for that Giants game, and that worked out pretty well. I think with I'm wondering if this is going to be, if it's ever going to happen. I'm wondering if this could be a Melvin Gordon breakout game.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're at home against the Packers. They fired their offensive coordinator because nothing was happening. They played Denver and Pittsburgh when he first came back. Those are solid. Tennessee's solid. Chicago's not particularly solid, but he just wasn't able to get, going against them. So
bad game script. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this could be a Melvin Gordon breakout week. So I've got him on a couple of teams. I need him to, I need him to finally show up at some point. But we'll see.
I think Melvin Gordon is a skilled player, and he's just had a hard time getting back into the flow of things. I mean, a lot of people are saying not drop, but they're hating on him, saying he's a terrible player. Like he shouldn't be getting so many. He shouldn't be getting so much play. Eckler. Look, the guy has skill. He just didn't have any kind of a preseason, and he needed to get back in the flow of things. And I think he could. But he's had 3 games, so this is a good. I mean, that's preseason, right? 3 or 4 games. I think if it's not this week, next week. But like you said, now being at home doesn't help that much for the Chargers. Unfortunately, there'll probably be more Packers fans at their quote unquote home than Chargers fans. But and actually, the Chargers, I think they have a perfect or something where they do better on away than at home. But I do think the Packers run defense is soft. I think you can easily run on them. And this would be the place to really, like, if the Chargers just want to make a statement, in which they need to do. I mean, taking out the Packers would be huge for the Chargers this week.
Yeah. I'll also, as maybe one last one, I'll throw out a couple of guys. One guy from last week that we talked about that you kind of brought up last week, and he didn't do a whole lot last week, but I think he's due then this week, and that's Cameron Brate at tight end. They're playing, Seattle. Seattle's pretty forgiving against tight ends, and OJ Howard is out again. So I feel like, Brate is due in one of these 2 games, and it didn't happen last week. So I feel like he's due this week. And then the other one is Sam Darnold. If you're desperate at quarterback, I know it's pretty dicey with Sam Darnold, but it depends. If don't play him over a Minshew, don't play him over a Matt Stafford. But again, he's playing against the Dolphins. The thing that scares me is his home road split. So this game does kind of scare me, but their schedule is super soft the rest of the way. And about half of those games are going to be at home. So next week he gets the Giants, and then 2 weeks after that, he gets the Raiders, terrible pass defenses. So even if you just have him as like a streamer to play like on alternate weeks or something like that,
like roll the dice on him this week. And
well, I think you can trust him for his home games. I mean, he put up 20 at home against the Cowboys. Last week in Jacksonville, he put up nearly 16 at Jacksonville. And so I think like the road thing could limit him a little bit. I think he's still like the teams they're playing are bad enough that he can still give you a solid floor, but with the availability of quarterbacks, streamers nowadays, 16 points is just, not that much. You can usually find a better option. So, but for his home games, I think he's going to give you 20 points for his home games. So, so if you've got a need at quarterback, like I would play him over, we've seen from Carson Wentz lately that Carson Wentz is struggling a little bit. The last several weeks, and then his schedule doesn't get, much easier for the immediate future. But Carson Wentz has only put up 15 points or more in one of the last 4 weeks. It's 12, 21, 7, 14. And he's had a challenging schedule. But, again, Chicago against the pass is pretty strong. He's got a bye week next week, and then New England, and then Seattle. And then towards the end of the season, his schedule gets easier with Miami and the Giants and the Redskins. But if you've got a guy like him, I would for sure play Darnold over him.
Yeah, I think you'll know for sure this week. Like if he can't go off on the Dolphins, then like there's something wrong. And I think I just don't see he's complaining about a thumb, stuff like that. Like I feel like he's giving himself an out. I want to see more thunder from the dude, like if you're going to be the future of this franchise, you need to eviscerate the Dolphins. You know what I mean? Like if he gets 16 points against the Dolphins, I'm going to be really worried for him. Who is the first guy you mentioned?
Cameron Brate.
Cameron Brate. Here's the difficulty with Cameron Brate. I've always been a big Brate fan, but one, he's not necessarily. He's a little banged up, and he may not play. Actually, I don't know for sure. We probably know a little bit better today. Yesterday, I saw that he's still questionable. But two, Arians doesn't. So it's difficult because Winston loves to pass to his tight ends, but Arians likes to use the tight ends as basically another offensive line guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why OJ Howard hasn't gotten it. I mean, OJ Howard is a more physical, much more athletic guy, specimen than Brate, and he's gotten Zippo. I'm not sure why Brate. I think Brate is due in terms of like he's a red zone target, or he has been in the past. But I don't know. This is a different system. This is a different coach. He has gotten a few, like we would talk about positive regression. He has gotten a couple targets in the end zone that didn't come to fruition. So maybe if he continues to get like one or two, one of them hits, you get a touchdown. But be wary of tight ends in an Arian system.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I would only play him as if you've got Austin Hooper on a bye or something to that effect. Like hopefully you have a good consistent tight end who just happens to maybe be on bye or something. That would or you're in a deep league, 14-team league or something. But I think this is about the only circumstance in which I would play like with last week with Jonnu Smith. Like Delaney Walker was out and they were playing the Bucks. Like, okay, this is a rare situation, but I would play Jonnu Smith. And so this week, this is a rare situation, but I would play Brate if you need, if you have a desperate need because Howard's out and they're playing the Seahawks. So
yeah, well, why not just play? Because the Seahawks are such an easy. They're soft against tight ends.
Yeah, they're like Cardinals light. I don't know what it is about that NFC West not being able to defend tight ends, but yeah.
Why wouldn't you play Jonnu? Who are they?
I mean, he's an option, but I think with let's see. So their matchup this week is the Panthers. The Panthers have been pretty solid against tight ends. 10th fewest tight end or 10th fewest points allowed to tight ends. He just got you 78 yards and a touchdown last week. I mean, you can say, well, that's reason to, go back to him again this week. Well, they were playing a defense that's soft against tight ends.
Yeah.
Brandon Tannehill is not the most consistent quarterback. None of the pass catchers in that Tennessee system are the most consistent. So it's almost kind of like, just feeling like some guys, you play them every week because you that consistency is going to be there, and you're better off putting them in than leaving them on your bench. And then there's some guys that, like, if you put them in and you get a good week out of them, stick them back on the bench because you're probably not going to get another one for another 5 or 6 weeks. So that's just kind of my mentality.
Right. And he's, I guess what you're kind of talking about too is matchup dependent, So no more questions. If you guys have any questions, I see a couple people watching. If you have any questions, any thing you want to bring up, any comments on the NFL or fantasy, leave a comment. We'll see it right away, and I'll put you up on the screen here. The one thing I wanted to talk about, I think that is important for me, is we're getting in the time here in the second half of the year. It's important to start looking for I'll put it up here, second half pickups, fresh legs. I don't know how many seasons I've picked up, especially in keeper or dynasty leagues. You find guys on the waiver wire, or you trade for guys that are under the radar that are good and that can really blast off at the end of the year. And I'm talking particularly about running backs. So for you, Jared, who would be some of these guys? So the ones I'm thinking about particularly, and the one I'm thinking about particularly is Delvin
Cook's
Singletary. Yeah,
Delvin Singletary.
Yeah, and so I guess the contrast for me is this is different than handcuffs. These are guys
okay.
who, like, I'm not depending on as like somebody getting hurt. Instead, these are guys who the guy ahead of them I've never trusted as the main guy.
Okay.
And so history serves out like, so I'll give you 2 examples. One year it was Johnson. It was David Johnson. Like, I just believed in David Johnson. I knew he had the talent, but they just never played him. They played, I forget, it was Chris Johnson. They played ahead of him. And I was like, Chris Johnson, this guy, he's no longer CJ 2K. But Johnson, but at the end of the season, they brought on the fresh legs and Johnson smashed.
Yeah.
And the other example is my AK-47, Alvin Kamara. I just believed in his skill, his talent, but he had 2 guys ahead of him. He had Adrian Peterson and Engelhart. What's his name? No, Ingram. He had Ingram and Peterson. And at the end of the year, guess who was the star? It was. And so some of these young guys who just need time to watch the system, let some of the old guys at them. So my primary one is Devin Singletary.
Right.
As I think this is the time when everybody's going to drop him. I guarantee you he's going to hit the waiver wire. Be on the lookout for him, because I do believe he's going to. This is also a time when the Bills schedule gets really good. So it's a sweet spot for the Bills. Fresh legs. Pick you up some Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a limited number of those guys this year. I think Singletary is kind of, like you said, the choice there, because a lot of other situations, I don't think somebody's going to emerge from Tampa. Their running game is just not. I know you've liked Ronald Jones.
That's my other one. Ronald Jones.
I mean, I think you're going in the right direction if it's going to happen. But for me, like with Singletary and Buffalo, I can kind of see that a little bit better. Tampa, it just seems like they just like going with multiple guys. They don't trust any one of them particularly that much. I have a harder time seeing that one. And, as another situation to point out, Kansas City, where a lot of people thought Darwin Thompson was going to come on as the guy. And that was especially prior to McCoy being signed. Mm-hmm. So, but prior to that, people thought, oh, Darwin Thompson, he's gonna leapfrog Damian Williams for sure. Well, when McCoy came in, that kind of threw a ratchet in that. And it's still possible that he could, but I think like most of the situations that I'm thinking of would still require an injury, to really kind of make some of this stuff happen. I think if we're talking purely just about like where's a situation that doesn't have to have an injury that someone could just leapfrog someone else. I like the Singletary one. Don't really particularly like Ronald Jones as well. The one that I guess I would point to as a possibility, even though this seems to be trending in the other direction, is Miles Sanders in Philadelphia.
I think that's a great example.
Yeah. I think that could happen, but
yes, I think it will.
Oddly enough, like they keep giving like more carries to Howard. Like Howard keeps like pulling away from Sanders, it seems like, rather than Sanders pulling away from Howard. But
that's how it goes though. That's how it always goes. And that's why these people tend to hit the waiver wire. These kind of players, they'll hit the waiver wire because they're like, oh, they're never going to get play. And this is the time, these young guys start to flourish. Now, maybe you can wait a couple of weeks. I think this is just to kind of bring it to to the attention of those watching.
Sanders especially like, it's weird because they're just using him more in the passing game. And he's getting some big plays. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's only had 3 carries. And then after this week, they've got a bye and then New England. So he's probably not going to be doing anything. So I think really if he comes on, it would be, like right at the end of the season,
week 12, week 13.
Yeah. At the earliest,
I guarantee you he's going to be on the waiver wire after his bye and Patriots. I'm going to be picking him up that week to play him the next. Who do they have after the Patriots?
So the Eagles schedule. So after the Patriots, they have the Seahawks, which isn't an easy matchup either. But like the Eagles schedule at the end of the season gets very easy. That they get the Dolphins, the Giants, the Redskins, and then the Cowboys. But I mean, for those 3 games, and with the Redskins being a playoff game, like Miles Sanders could easily be someone that you lose your star running back, you don't have the handcuff for him or something like that, and Miles Sanders comes in and like wins you or gets you to a championship at least.
I think that's a great example. He had been somebody I has slipped under my radar, mainly because he's not on the waiver wire. A lot of people have rostered him, but I think you're I think what you were insinuating earlier with Patriots after the bye, to me that just says drop.
Right. Yeah.
Another one is Montgomery. Very similar, although he's already had his breakout game. I think people are going to hold on to him this week, but he's not going to do great against. We talked about him last week. He's not going to do great against Philadelphia, and they're solid. It's just a wall.
Right.
Run pass, run defense. What is his schedule would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, his is like so I traded for, and you saw this already, where I traded OBJ for Allen Robinson in one of my leagues. And part of the reason I did that was for the next 5 games for the Bears are the Eagles, the Lions twice, and the Giants. And so 4 out of those 5 for Allen Robinson are just A+ matchups. For David Johnson, 3 out of those 5 are really good because Detroit and New York are both really bad against
David Montgomery.
For David Montgomery. So 3 of those 5 are good for Montgomery because you get Detroit twice and the Giants. Now this week against Philadelphia, like you said, you don't want to play him against them. But after this week, then 3 of the next 4 are really attractive. And so I thought about momentarily like trying to trade Montgomery. I only have him in 1 league. And I thought about trading him for like a better wide receiver, like, cause I thought like, because running back is such a tougher position to cut to, account for
scarcity, right?
Scarcity is really what it's related to. Like I could get a better a receiver with, better output and talent than I could hanging on to Montgomery. But 3 of the next 4 after this week, are just really attractive matchups where I'll start him. So I just ultimately decided like, is really a receiver that I'm going to get in a trade going to be that much better than what I have or that much better than what I can stream off the waiver wire? And I just decided it's probably worth it more to keep Montgomery. So I like his short term, a little bit longer term. It gets tougher again towards the end of the season, but
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think that's, unless you have anything else you want to bring up, the chat has died down, and so I think it's a good lull to.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe Tuesday night we can talk some last minute like trade targets.
That's right. So when is the deadline? We were going to talk about the day.
We were going to talk about that. So next Friday, or this coming Friday. Well, since we're already on Saturday, so Friday the 10th. I think it's the 10th. Whatever day that falls close to, is the trade deadline, and so. I think
who are some immediate guys that kind of come to your head for somebody that you do not want to miss the deadline for?
Well, I've been trying to trade for running backs who, I've tried to trade for 2 things, either guys who have a great playoff schedule, if my teams are already looking like they're going to the playoffs. And so I've traded for guys like, Kenny Golladay or a Bucs receiver like Evans or Godwin, because those 2 teams play each other. Detroit and Tampa play each other in the first round of the playoffs. If you're in a 4-team format, week 15, there's going to be a lot of points in that game. So I like those guys. Or like I've had teams. I have teams that are maybe 4-4 right now, 4-4, 5-3. Like. On the bubble of are they going to make it into the playoffs or not? And so I've been trading for running backs who have an easy schedule. So Le'Veon Bell hasn't done a lot, I know, but his schedule is just as easy as it gets. Josh Jacobs, very easy schedule. Leonard Fournette, very easy schedule. And so these are guys that won't cost you what you would have to spend for a Barkley, a Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, someone like that, but they might be able to put out, close to those numbers just because their schedules are so easy.
Yeah. And you just have like more confidence if you're adding to your ranks, especially.
Yeah.
I think, it goes hand in hand with what we talked about earlier. Some of these guys, like Montgomery and specifically like Sanders, are people you'd like to target if you can't pick them up off the waiver wire for their easy schedule in the playoffs.
Yeah. So we can talk about that Tuesday night though.
Okay.
Our 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central show.
Be there or be square. Come with your questions. I think we may have a special guest. He tuned in earlier. It was Eric Courier. He's a big fantasy fanatic, and he said he might want to come on, get some advice.
All right.
So trade, we'll talk about trade on Tuesday. Anything for tomorrow to look out for? Who are the guys? So on bye, NFL on bye. Let's take a look here just to make sure.
So it's a big, like I have some opportunities in my games because a lot of my opponents have like a lot of buys going on. So
it's by NATO.
The Saints and the Falcons, the Rams,
Cincinnati Bengals. That's it. Falcons, Unless let me make sure I got it right this time.
Make sure you got the right year. Like, oh, this is the Generals. Oh, this is the 1916.
The Oilers. What are the Oilers doing on by? So yeah, I got it. Atlanta Falcons, Cincinnati Bengals, Los Angeles Rams, and the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is only the first by NATO. Week 10 is going to be Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, New England Patriots, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Redskins. So you're going to have that's a bigger by NATO.
I've already had most of my bye weeks have hit earlier. I have a couple of teams where I've got some Saints and Falcons and stuff, but I'm more hoping to take advantage of other people because like there's a lot of guys that I'm playing that their lineups are gutted, and so I'm hoping the next 2 weeks I can have 2 good weeks and really kind of get a good push towards the playoffs. Yeah,
it's weird. I guess it's because I targeted so much Tampa and I guess it was Tampa and the Browns. I had a lot of with Chubb. So yeah, I've already been through my stuff. I'm playing a guy on week 10 who looks like his
in that league it looks pretty bad. But I think that guy is like unbeaten or something. So he's not worried about the
playoffs. That's a good point. But I'm just hoping you don't get beat this week because I want to be your first.
And then I just like bench my whole lineup this week to like keep you from being able to say that. All right.
Well, have a great rest of your weekend, and I'm sure we'll be texting back and forth. We need a place that people can see. We got some good takes going on. I keep saying that, but I don't do anything about it. But yeah, feel free to leave a comment after we go. This is live, but after this will become just a archived video. Leave a comment on this video with just a comment. Maybe while you're watching the games, I'm going to be checking back in case any of you are interested in sort of bantering about the games this week. So until next Tuesday, I'll say stay zen. It's just fantasy football.
And good luck in your games.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, but